We're now being joined from Aire's Abuja studio for their contributions on the subject of Edo governorship election by renowned civil society figure, author, and political affairs analyst, Chude, who will later on be joined by Dr. Joseph Aire, who's from the Center for Democracy and Development. Good morning, Achike. Good to have you join us on the morning show today.
Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Joseph. Good morning. It's a pleasure always to be here with you guys.
All right, thanks, Achike. Well, I mean, today is D-Day. Everybody has been waiting for what will happen in Edo State, 18 local government areas, 3 major candidates out of 17. What is the significance of this election to you, given the heat, the noise, the expectations, and the apprehension, if you like, towards this election? Break it down for us in terms of its significance.
Well, every election should be significant, whether it's an election that it's conducted at the local government level, state level, or national level, because it carries with it, each election carries with it desire for something new, a departure from what has been, and the hope and belief that what is going to replace an existing, that which is being, replaced will be better than, than what has been replaced. So it carries with it the hope of a people, and this hope is reposed in just a few people. You have, a state of millions. About 2.6 million people are registered voters, but only one will be governor of the state. So you see so much being, hope being put on the shoulders of just one person and whatever political party structure that he has in place. It is significant in the sense that this is a period where people, after a period of renewed conviction, that perhaps INEC is beginning to get it right, following the elections in Osun State and Anambra State. There was this renewed conviction, and the media harped on this. Civil society also harped on that conviction that, look, the Beavers is going to be a game changer. Situation is going to get much better. And then from that zenith of expectation and zeal and enthusiasm, where people in their millions flocked, especially young people, to registration centers to register, some of them for the very first time. After the election, the subsequent election in 2023, it went down to an all-time low. And then you even had the ordinary people, ordinary Nigerians, blaming the media and blaming civil society for giving them a false hope that this time around there was going to be something new. So this election is happening on, with this at the background. The lost hope and zeal and enthusiasm that Nigerians, especially the younger people, had prior to the 2023 general election. Therefore, it is significant for INEC and significant most especially as the organizing body responsible for this election and for the security agencies also. So Nigerians, especially those citizens, have nothing to prove anymore. They proved it going into the 2023 elections that they were interested in their democracy, that they wanted their democracy to work. Unfortunately, like I said, that hope was shattered. So now INEC has to prove itself. It's INEC, first of all, and then the security forces, secondly, that now have to prove their method, that now have to give hope to Nigerians that perhaps we might begin to get it right once more. And don't forget that shortly after that, the 2023 election, we had off-cycle elections in Bayelsa State, in Imo State, and in Kogi State. And the outcome was less than, palatable, at least in the minds of people. So if it will be significant, really, if the voters in Edo State can be effectively mobilized and they come out in their numbers, because the experiences of the past has also just given them the impression that it's not going to count, it doesn't really matter, and so if the political parties are able to mobilize the people, because they are the chief mobilizers of people in elections. They are the greatest losers of elections and the greatest beneficiaries of elections when they win. So their job is to mobilize the people, of course, with civil society and the media also doing their patriotic duty to also galvanize the people. And so it's, I think the significance lies in the fact that INEC has to start again from almost from the beginning, from that zenith of hope and zeal and enthusiasm to the level of despair and lack of belief in the electoral body. So they are the ones that have a point to prove. And if they get it right, of course, looking at issues of logistics, but of course, don't forget that INEC cannot do so much, can only do so much. If the security agencies are not there to provide the right environment, the right climate for the voters, to ensure that there is no citizen voter suppression and intimidation, to ensure that the processes are not toyed with by political parties and their thugs, then perhaps we could have come out smiling a bit better. And then, lastly, it will be significant if the rhetorics, the violent rhetorics by political parties and their hirelings and thugs, are not actualized during this election. If we're going to have a relatively violence-free election, then that would put a lie to the rhetorics, violent rhetorics that we have heard and seen going into the election.
All right then, Achike, thank you so much for setting the tone of this conversation. I'm going to have to just put you on hold very quickly while we go back to Edo State to talk to our reporter, Christy McCauley, who has been observing the polling units there in Aire. Can you give us an update? Now, the last time we spoke, you said that, INEC wasn't there, INEC officials weren't there yet, and people were still trooping in. Can you give us an update now? Have they arrived? What exactly is happening on ground?
I'm at the collation center. This place, we have all materials here. I think they have a bit of a logistics issue this morning. We have materials here, INEC officials here, the supervisors and all of them, they are all here. They are trying to take materials from here, distribute them across the polling units and wards in Aire right now as we speak. I don't know if my cameraman can just, pan a little bit. You see them, they are standing, waiting for vehicles. They are hanging around, they are waiting for vehicles. They've been here trying to get materials from these spots. This is a Mokpai Primary School, still at the city center. They are trying to get materials from these spots to all the polling units in Aire. Aire is a large local government, actually. They are trying to get materials from here to all the polling units. I have with me this morning, I have Mr. Giwa, an election observer. He's been here before I got here. So let's hear what he has to say. So you've been here, so what happened? When you came, at the time you arrived here, what was on ground here?
Yeah, thank you very much. This is the RAC in the Aire local government. That is the registration area center where materials are supposed to have been to be distributed to over 21 units within this area. When we came in, like you have seen, there's a lot of disorderliness. Some of the INEC officials that are here, they are complaining that the vehicles that are supposed to take the ad hoc staffs and the materials to their various units, over 21 units, the vehicles have not come, and so they are waiting for the vehicles. Of course, we can see security officials around. But this is, even as we are talking now, this is almost to 9. Officially, accreditation is supposed to start by 8:30, but it is a bit shocking. Even in the middle of a state capital, Aire local government, that has the largest, registered voters in Edo State, as at 8:30 to 9, materials at the racks have not moved to the various voting units. And for us as observers, that is very shocking, and we don't know what would be happening to other local governments that are in the outskirts. I mean, it is really a serious issue, to be considered.
Is this the only place you have visited so far this morning?
We visited Aire car park, where we have 2 units, unit 3 and 4, and that is exactly what the complaints were. The complaints were that the INEC officials were not there, party agents were there, Voters they've been waiting for the INEC officials to come. Of course, you can now see what the problem is. They have not been able to move from the registration area center. So that has been the problem. So these various units we have gone to the Oredo car park unit 1 and 2, Oredo car park unit 3 and 4, that is the same thing. The voters are there, security agents are there, party agents are there, but the INEC officials are not there.
So we'll just go around some of the centers around Oredo. Then we'll get to New Benin by Yaro. Let's find out if we have improved situations in all those areas. And I will come back and bring you up to speed with development as it unfolds here.
Christy, we'll come back to our guest in the studio. Like I was just saying, Achike, you definitely have set the tone of the conversation. And you could hear our reporter there saying that, the election observer there saying that they have issues actually transporting the materials that they need from their head office there in Edo State to the different polling units. And don't forget that we're looking at about 4,000 polling units across the state. This Edo election has been described as a litmus test for INEC's credibility. Do you think the way they've started out with this election it would help restore public trust after previous controversial outcomes? You rightfully mentioned the 2023 general elections. What specific measures would you recommend that INEC take to ensure that today's election is, of course, seen as free, fair, credible, particularly in the eyes of local and international observers? And I want your reaction to the fact that as of this morning, they are still complaining that their vehicles are down, knowing fully well that this elections had been, the date for this elections had been set a long time ago.
I think in your opener, was it Joseph that talked about the D-Day? This is the D-Day, so everybody knew that today is going to be the D-Day, especially INEC. And now you're talking about, based on the report you're getting on the field, about logistic issues and all that. And then the question is, you asked me, is what advice can I give INEC at this point to ensure that things go well? There's no advice that can be given to INEC by anybody. The die is already cast. The food is already in the fire, and it is already cooking, And so any other thing that INEC did not do well will show today, in this election. And one of them is just the logistic issue you talked about. INEC had how many years to prepare for this, how many months to prepare for this. They have been in touch, they have been in consultation with different stakeholders. And one of the most vital stakeholders is those who are saddled with the responsibility of moving men and materials to the different polling units in Edo State. So they've known this all this while. They knew what they were going to do. And so, but again, it's still early days yet. There are about, just like you said, about over 4,000 polling units in Edo State. What we have in maybe any failure right now at this particular point in time, in 2, 3, 4, 10, 15 polling units might not be an indication of the general performance of logistics in this election. It is still early days yet, but again, it is said in an old African adage that you look for the black sheep in the daytime. So if we are beginning to see 1 or 2 hiccups, it's too early in the day to experience that. But like I said, we will see how it goes. We will look at what is going to happen in other polling units. And we hope that this deficit will be righted in terms of logistic performance in other places. So the credibility, there is no doubt. Like I said, INEC is in the eye of the storm. From a position of initial zeal and enthusiasm to this level of hopelessness and disbelief or unbelief in INEC. INEC is the one that has to prove a point. And they have to prove a point through effective logistics, mobilization, and deployment of officials and materials. They have to prove that point through the conduct of their personnel and the other, the machines, the BVAS machines, and all the other ones. In terms of uploading of the results and all that, we have to see. If they don't get it right, it will further consolidate the thinking that this is INEC, the whole process, democratic process is becoming a joke because INEC is key in ensuring that we have a more effective, democratic process. The political class has not always endeared itself to Nigerians when it comes to election because the tendency to manipulate obviously stems from a belief that anything is possible and you can do anything and get away with it. So they have not shown the kind of vision that you expect from, effective, and sincere political leadership. They have not shown enough level of patriotism to show Nigerians that the nation state is more important than personal proclivities. And so, but then again, you also look at the police institutions. Sometimes even when you feel a bit, you want to feel a bit sympathetic towards INEC, you want to do that because you know that INEC, without effective security arrangements, cannot also get it right. But the issue of logistics is within their grip, is in their area of jurisdiction. And so they need to get that one right. Then when it comes to breakdown in security, we know who to hold responsible for that.
All right, Achike. First, a clarification. My name is Steve Aire. Although I like to dream, but I'm not Joseph yet.
Yeah, Steve.
That's right. It's okay. Yes. All right. I mean, let me come in here with two angles, of course, which will be questions to you. You mentioned the part about it is INEC that needs to prove that they are ready for this election because the 2.2 million people of Edo, citizens of Edo, who have collected their PVCs are clearly ready. We will see how many people will turn out. But when you make that point, which is the first part of my question, are you by any chance trying to link that to the issues surrounding the conflict of interest regarding the resident electoral commissioner for Edo State, who, as you know, is from Rivers, who, as you know, is a cousin to the FCT minister, Nyesom Wike, talking about Anubum Onoha, who is the rec there. You recall all the issues around fears that, will he be impartial? Will he conduct a credible election? So when you say that INEC, it is for INEC to prove its mettle, are you also referring to the rec? That's one. The part two will be, yesterday, I believe, the president, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, implored everybody, all the stakeholders involved in this election to ensure that the votes of the people of Edo State count. But then there are other analysts who would say that that's a good thing to hear from the president, given his stance 4 years ago when Governor Obaseki was seeking re-election. And as a leader in APC then, you recall what he said, clearly, campaigning against Governor Obaseki as at that time. So the transition from a party man to a statesman and the president asking that votes should count. What are your thoughts about that? And do you think that Nigerians should hold him, to account in terms of what he has said?
Yeah, thank you, Steve, for the name correction. I was actually not looking at the screen, and was just the voice sounded a bit similar. Yes, there's this saying, I don't know how true, perhaps medical practitioners would be able to tell us, that it is not exactly very right. I don't know whether it's an ethical issue for a doctor, for instance, to operate on a family member, maybe a major surgery, and then he has to be the one doing the operation. And so at all times, it has to be avoided because he has to be seen to be dispassionate, and he might not be able to exhibit the right level of dispassion in doing that kind of operation, or maybe a pilot flying his family. Again, that might be a bit problematic in the same plane, so I don't know. But the issue of the wreck in Edo State and the position of INEC is very suspect, and I would say not a very responsible position to take. Because INEC should not be taking a position because it believes in a particular way of thinking. But you must not, justice must not just be done to be seen, but must be seen to be done. So you cannot allow just because the rec says, look, I am an impartial person, I'm a good person, and I'm not going to do anything to favor any particular political party in this election. These are words, and words is one of the easiest things to say. It's like, again, let's look at even the issue of the repentant Boko Haram. We are told that some of them have repented. Therefore, you are going to integrate them into the society, and then I know that. How do you know that they have repented? Because these are things of the mind. They are not visible. This you cannot see. You have no way of determining that. It is only through actions that you will be able to know. But the risk is so high. You don't want to get it to that level. Already there is suspicion. And so when there is this level of suspicion and fear about the possible conflict of interest, and that possibility arises, it is there, it's absolute. He has an attachment to Wike. So just like the doctor that will be operating on his wife or the children, there's an emotional attachment. You cannot remove that. So he has an emotional attachment. Perhaps they are as cousins. There's a relationship. They are good with one another and all that. So there's always a tendency, because Wike belongs to a tendency in this particular election. And then the governor is attached to somebody who belongs to a tendency in this particular election. So what INEC should have done is to make sure that every iota of doubt is removed, and that you do not look at the electoral body from the prism of bias. What they would have done is ask him to step aside and bring in somebody else. They have a lot of competent people, but for INEC to insist is grounds for very heavy suspicion. And so if this election goes in a particular direction that is not to the liking of a few people, they would use that also as a basis for saying, look, we made an appeal that this is not right, that there's a possible conflict of interest. And that's the word, possible conflict of interest. So what you do is to make sure that you remove every iota of doubt surrounding the particular issue and ask him to step aside. But they did not do that, and I think that INEC dropped the ball. INEC did not act responsibly and maturely when it comes to this particular decision. INEC did not show enough level of independence to say, look, it doesn't matter what happens, let us do the proper thing, so that people will see that we have done the proper thing.
All right.
So I think it's absolutely wrong, yeah.
Thank you so much, Achike, for that. Arise is on ground in Edo State covering the governorship election. So at this point, we're being joined by Arise correspondent Ovieteme George, who is keeping an eye on the candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Aire Ighodalo. Please, can you give us an update on the PDP candidate, as well as the voter turnout at your current location?
Good morning. Yes, it's a very wet day here in Ewoimi. Okay, I understand this is Ward 1, Unit 3 of Okaigbe Ewoimi. That's the polling unit. And of course, Esan Southeast local government area. Of course, this is where the candidate of the People's Democratic Party for the governorship election will cast his ballot. But nothing is actually happening at the moment, because you can see, of course, some security agencies, the police officers, and some who are here waiting to cast their ballot, waiting for officials of the Independent National Electoral Commission to arrive for the process to begin. So far, nothing has happened. Perhaps maybe because they are held up somewhere by the rain, but we are told that in a few minutes' time they will be here. Feelers coming in said they will be here in a few minutes. So we're still waiting for them, but it's not easy coming down here from Benin. It's about 3 hours, and of course, contending with security agencies. At almost every point, there is a checkpoint. The army, you would have to explain yourself, open your boot for a thorough search before you go past that checkpoint. And then a few minutes again, you meet another. So maybe the INEC officials, despite their status as the electoral umpire, would be going through such scrutiny before they will get to this point. But at the moment, we're still waiting for them. And that's the situation. Aire Ighodalo, the PDP governorship candidate, is expected to cast his ballot.
All right, Ovieteme. Okay, showers of blessing, you say. We don't know what that signifies for the voters or for the candidates. But then tell us, I can see a number of policemen and security operatives behind you. What is the security apparatus like at the local government area, specifically the ward where the candidate of the PDP will be voting later? What is the situation of things there in terms of security and in terms of a possible voter turnout? That is supposed to be a strong goal of the PDP candidate, isn't it? But in terms of expectations of people coming out, what are you hearing?
Well, you took the words out of my mouth when you said showers of blessing. I receive it. I receive it. Thank you very much. Okay, that's a bit of comic relief. You see behind me the police officers. I do not intend to intimidate them. They cannot be intimidated. Hello, how are you? You're here for election duty?
Yes.
Okay. You can't talk more than that?
Yeah.
You can't go beyond that because, of course, they are not allowed to speak to the press. The public relations officer is given such instruction to do so when the commissioner of police is not speaking. And, of course, a situation like this, you know, the DIGs, the AIGs would be on ground. You talked about the security situation. Watertight. Take it to the bank, watertight. I've gone through certain areas. Getting to this point was quite difficult. Now, they know that there is a checkpoint up front. You go past that one, they are seeing you. You still have to go through their own checkpoint. So it's more like, I don't know, whatever the instructions are. I just want to believe the electorate would not be intimidated. I think they're just sure there's no breakdown of law and order. People are actually coming out. You can follow me, please. You can see they are all waiting. They're all waiting to cast their ballot. It's been a rainy day. Hello, how are you?
Fine.
You're fine.
Yeah.
On a rainy day, you're fine.
Yes, we are all happy. We are fine. We are fine. It's a shower of blessing.
Okay, you're here to cast your ballot.
I'm here to cast my ballot.
Okay.
Yes.
Don't mention the name of the candidate. You're here to cast your ballot. Why are you here?
I'm here to cast my ballot to vote for my choice.
Thank you very much.
My name is Joseph Aire.
Joseph. Okay, Joseph. You're also here to do same, right?
Yes, of course, definitely.
Okay, definitely. Yeah. He made it so sure. So they are all here. There are others also out there. A canopy is being set up outside because of the rain. If the INEC officials come here, I bet in few seconds or minutes, the voters will come out to perform their civic duties. So far, so good. It's just the rain and then the delay by INEC officials. We are here. PDP Asway Godalo is expected to cast his ballot. Look at this table. For now, I can sit while waiting for them.
All right, then thank you so much, Ovieteme George, for that update. I know that you've spoken to two of those men there, but in general, when we look at the voter turnouts, considering the fact that over 2.2 million PVCs were collected out of the 2.6 million registered voters, the polling units experiencing right now, in your opinion, is it a case of low participation or just focused on the fact that it's way out of the way coming from Benin? I was talking to Christine McCauley, another of our colleagues who is on ground, said that they're beginning to experience that surge.
Well, I haven't been to other polling stations, but the build-up to the election and the number of PVCs collected suggests that this voter apathy thing is gradually creeping into the fabric of our democratic processes. About 14% of the PVCs not collected yet, and of course they can't participate in this exercise because that information came as at Tuesday from the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. So over time, this has been a recurring decimal that voter apathy or low turnout, a number of persons who could actually tilt the stakes if they had come out to participate. So sometimes I just don't know. That cast my mind back to a certain election year when Aminu Tambuwal was seeking re-election. He won with about 300 and something votes, you see. But the number of voters, that is the number of PVCs not collected, that is just one step. Sometimes the PVCs are collected, but on election day, they don't turn up. So you see, it's more like a self-disenfranchisement, casting a slur on our democratic processes.
All right, Ovieteme, thanks so much. We'll still be back with you, but for now, we'll return to Abuja studios, where Dr. Joseph Aire, who's from the Center for Democracy and Development, has now joined Achike Chude in the analysis of this very important election in Edo State today. Dr. Aire, good to have you join us this morning for this Edo 2024. Dr. Aire.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you indeed.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
All right, thank you. Okay, so two questions from me. First is to, what would be your thoughts regarding this apparent low start, given the reports that we are getting from our correspondents who are on ground in Edo State, in different parts of Edo State. We've spoken to about 2 of them who are saying that, yes, there is rain, showers of blessings, you will say, but of course there is also the logistics problem. INEC officials have not been able to move the necessary materials and voting materials from their collation center to all the wards and local government where voting will take place. What do you say to that, given the fact that we had enough time for preparation? And then the second part that I would like you to add to that, which I'm sure that Achike will also want to return to, was the second part of my question to him about the plea from Mr. President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu that INEC and all the stakeholders should allow voters, the vote of the people to count. But then people are saying that 4 years ago, this was a man, a leader in APC, who clearly didn't want the sitting governor at that time to return. But today, he's a statesman, he's the president, and he's saying, let the vote of the people count. What are your thoughts on this transition of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu from APC, a leader at that time, to the president who now says, let the vote count?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I think the issues are quite clear. Obviously, the Independent Electoral Commission has not done, very well in terms of their preparation, because, has been, said, they have enough time to prepare. Whether rain or other, challenges that they might claim to be having right now, they should have made, sufficient arrangement to ensure that the logistic that we have always had in the past as a major challenge in the elections, is overcome. So we can understand the low turnout in terms of the fact that people are still just wanting to observe what is happening against the backdrop of, a lot of misinformation, prior to today, all the processes leading up to today. A number of people have had concern of insecurity, because of misinformation and disinformation that has been peddled out there. And so that it will also be a challenge. I think people are just wanting to watch what will unfold, and as the rain maybe, dies down, people will probably come out before 2:30, or 3 when the polls will close today. As per the remarks by the president, well, as they say, words are cheap, it's a little bit difficult to, determine, whether people will listen to the fact that, because the president has said so, we know what has happened in the past. And so, these are just not what people are ready to believe in. And so the concern of insecurity, the, challenges that people are having with hardship and all of that, as to whether their vote will also count or not, these are issues that people are, very concerned with.
All right, then. I'd like to move the conversation along back to Mr. Achike. Now, if we see the former President Goodluck Jonathan suing for peace and charging political actors to prioritize the stability of the state, and we look at PSC's call for the enforcement of electoral laws, the Police Service Commission has asked officers to strictly enforce these laws. Do you believe that the PSC has the institutional capacity to hold officers accountable for misconduct? And how can they enhance their monitoring mechanisms during this election? We're looking at about over 30,000 or 35,000 officers, if I'm right, that have been sent down to Edo State. How do they monitor them during these elections?
Yeah, do they have the capacity to walk the talk? I think they have the capacity to make efforts. And again, one has been privileged to have them in our midst, at the level of the Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room when they came to engage. And in fairness to them, of course, they cannot monitor all the police personnel across the state. It's not possible. But they have to rely on collaborative partners to be able to do that. And I know that in some of the meetings, in the engagements that we have had with their representatives in some previous elections, when complaints coming from the field, from our observers, I'm talking about Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room, we'll pass it on to them, and immediately they begin to make calls. They just ask for specifics about the location, the place, the polling unit, and all that, and then details of the incidents, and then they escalate to authorities. And so they have done that in fairness to them. But this is, Nigerian institutions are weak. There's no doubt about that. So they can only do those things that they can do. So it's not, apart from even the laws setting them up, operationally, a lot of them are very, very weak. And you will see this weakness also showing in generally. When you look at the trend of elections, you look at the general disposition of the security forces, especially the police, and then the fact that you have outbreaks of violence in many parts of a state where an election is taking place, even if it's a national election. And there have been stories, recorded incidences, and these are facts, of people saying that when certain acts, against the electoral law, acts of violence were taking place, they were taking place in full view of security personnel, and they did nothing about that. We have had such reports also, depending on the election and all that. So they have shown some level of weakness that does not give me that confidence to believe that overall they will be able to, when it comes to outbreak of violence and the rest. Yes, they do all this, their shows, of force. Every election, they come in with all their vehicles and then their guns just to intimidate. Again, it could be intimidating to even the normal voter that wants to come out and vote on election day. So that also has the potential to keep people, back at home for fear that something can happen. But at the same time, it has not exactly succeeded in keeping the hoodlums away from the polling units. Especially from that dangerous the dangerous hours of 2 p.m. above, when counting is going to start. So they will do their bit, but whether they will be able to succeed in that, I doubt that they have the capacity for that. Then as for, I think you talked about the president's statement. On the surface, it's a very good statement. It is what is expected of a president, of a statesman, when an election is taking place and all that, even though his party is also involved. But Nigerian politicians are not Democrats, and that is the truth about it. And virtually every single one of them. So there is a cause to question their democratic credentials, even that of the president himself. Of course, we've also seen a few things in the past, but he has said the right thing, and that's what, like I said, he's supposed to do. So let's hope that that those that are in charge would also adhere and also ensure. But don't forget that it is not on election day or just 24 hours before the election that you make this statement. You're supposed to be happening it every day. You're supposed to, even when you're having meetings with your representative in the governorship election, in this case of Bebolo, when you're talking to him and you're talking to party stalwarts from Edo State, you must be harping on the fact that election should not be a do or die affair. It is actually not on election day. Though for what you do on election day, it's also good if it just serves as a reiteration of what you had already, told them and put in place to ensure that it's going to be free and fair. And then the president also has overwhelming influence over the security forces. So sometimes the failure of the security is sometimes down to the failure of those who are in a position to hold them accountable when they fail. So I hope he has also done that, giving the marching order to the Inspector General of Police to ensure that his people are up and doing. These are the things that are expected, actually.
All right, thank you, Achike. But let me return to Dr. Joseph Aire, and I'll be interested in knowing what your thoughts are regarding the fact that, yes, we know that security is heavy. It's been confirmed by even our correspondent on the ground. But in terms of what is expected of election observers and the civil society who will be around all the voting areas, what do you think voters and Nigerians at large should expect from them, particularly from all the situation rooms where they will be collating their information, keeping tab of what is happening? What are the items that you think that they should focus on, and what will expect of those who are monitoring this election on ground?
Well, I think one of the very big challenge that the big challenge that we have is that election has become too militarized. It's over militarized, in this country. In other climes, if you go to Ghana, people can go about their daily activities even when the election is on, and so this is also creating a lot of apprehension, in people's minds. The insecurity challenge that people are concerned about. Anything can happen. Edo State, again, is one of the states that has been underscored by this issue of cultism. And so there's always this, tendency for even political actors to use, these, young men and women who can do anything. And so, what people should be looking out for will basically be to ensure that they are cautious and that the election observers will monitor and report appropriately what is happening on the ground, and hoping that in the future we'll be able to use that. But then again, we never really learn from anything in this country. So that's another concern.
If I can come in here and touch on, beavers and its role in electoral integrity, it's something that has come up number of times, especially when we're having these off-cycle elections. Now, INEC has promised to ensure that the beaver system would work without interference. But based on past experiences with reference to the 2023 elections, do you believe that this technology will be effectively deployed? Or do you have concerns about, potential manipulations that could undermine the credibility of this election? That question is to you, Mr. Aire. Yes.
There are always concerns about the efficiency of the electoral body to conduct, free, fair, and credible elections. Against the backdrop that Edo State is a very high-stake, election at this moment, electoral period at this moment, it is difficult to really, see how, we'll ensure that the beavers will really work. Beavers are machines. They will work if people make them work. Against the backdrop of the fact that a number of rhetorics have been out there, people have threatened, that, they must take Edo by all means. The issue of Edo not be Lagos and all of that. These are issues that, will come to play. Issues of incumbency, both at the state and federal level, will also impact on how, these instruments are used. Not, minding whether people will promise that they will ensure that they are going to deliver. Promises are nothing. Perception in politics, is everything. but reality, is nothing. Against the backdrop of past experiences, we cannot really expect so much. But, I think we should be cautiously optimistic that, we'll get some measure of reassurance that they would deliver.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Mr. Aire and Achike, for your analysis on today's Edo gubernatorial elections. We appreciate your time. All right, then we're going to go on a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue the show.